Today we're talking about the 3 biggest lies in whiskey. These are things as a bourbon nerd I fell prey to early on, and hopefully this video is going to help you avoid some pitfalls.
Welcome to Stuff and Whiskey. I'm Erin.
I'm Josh, and if you're new here, we are husband and wife. We are not professional whiskey tasters or professional whiskey opinion havers, but we do have opinions about whiskey.
We do.
Just like anybody does.
Yeah.
And we do blind tastings and these topical conversations about things within the whiskey community. Today's going to be a good one because we're talking about 3 of the biggest pitfalls, 3 of the biggest lies in the world of whiskey. As a bourbon nerd, these are things that I said I fell prey to.
Yeah.
I definitely did.
And as someone who would call herself more of a casual social sipper, I don't think I necessarily fell prey to them, but I do see the prevalence of these lies as experienced by my significant other. And just by being in this world.
It's part of the hobby. When you
it's part of the hobby.
When you have a hobby like this, that there's so much hype and there's so much, hard to get bottles, and you don't know how you're going to get your hands on them, and you don't know how, what you're going to have to pay for them, and all this feeds into that. So let's go ahead and get into it with the first lie. Let's not delay.
Okay.
What is the first lie?
All right. The first lie is that hunting and building relationships is better than paying a markup.
Yeah. This one hits real close to home for me.
Yeah.
Because
you've changed your stance on this.
Big time. What everybody talks about is either hunting around for bottles or building relationships, and you're often cautioned against paying any kind of marked up prices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in general, that seems like a good bit of advice on the surface.
Yeah.
The reason it's a lie is because I went the build a relationship route, and if you guys know, if you can attest, husband and wife here, relationships cost money. Sometimes they
be pricey.
A lot of money. Oftentimes, good relationships cost a lot of money. So if you're going to build a relationship with a liquor store, I can give personal anecdote here, right? I built a relationship with a liquor store. I would go in there and spend $200, $300, $400 a month buying things off the shelf, barrel picks, all this stuff.
And it wasn't necessarily things we didn't need, but also it wasn't things we did need, per se.
Right. I'd just go in there. I never wanted to leave empty-handed. I would buy something when I left. I'd buy wine for dinners, things like that.
Yeah.
Building this relationship. And what it led to was, over the course of a year, I probably spent multiple years in a row, over $2,000 in there every year, probably maybe double that some years. And, over the course of the year, I might get 2 or 3 allocated bottles that were maybe, right on par with suggested retail, or maybe a little bit marked up. Like maybe I get a Stag Junior for $100 instead of 60, But if I just went and bought the bottles I wanted, the allocated bottles that I wanted, that I was going in there asking for, I could have just bought them at marked up prices from museum stores and saved myself a lot of trouble, a lot of time building that relationship, a lot of, space in the house, buying bottles that I don't really need, to be honest. And it honestly would have saved me, over the long haul, would have saved me a bunch of time and a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So
I think this lie needs to be weighed against your own personal preferences.
Right. But here's the thing too, right? Like the other avenue is hunting.
Yeah.
And to go hunting, you're going to spend a lot of time. You're going to spend a lot of money. It's going to cost you gas. You're going to go into stores. You're going to buy other things. It's how it goes.
Right.
So you're either going to have to invest your time, more of your time and some of your money to hunt, or you're going to have to invest some of your time and a lot of your money to build a relationship, or you just pay the marked up price for the bottle, call it a convenience fee.
Invest more money, less time.
Right. Save yourself
whatever your preference.
Save yourself all the time and all the money by just going into a store that has stuff marked up and buying it.
Yeah.
It literally would have saved me thousands of dollars for what I spent at a local store.
Not to mention the time away from home.
Yeah. For what I spent at a local store, I literally could have just gone out in one weekend to a store that had marked up prices and bought the entire Buffalo Trace Antique collection every year. And I could have had that, and then I could have just bought Rare Breed to drink on a, monthly basis. And I'd have been fine. Like, it would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
So, the lie that you shouldn't pay marked up prices, I think, is a bit of a,
a misnomer.
It's a misnomer because you really have to be careful. Granted, don't put yourself, in debt buying whiskey. Don't go into the red. But weigh out, do you have a lot of time? Go hunting if you want to, if you like it. Do you have a lot of time and money to build a relationship with a store, go that way. If you don't have a lot of time and you have money, maybe consider paying marked up prices, and don't let anybody throw shade at you for that or shame you for that, because honestly, you're probably spending more time with your family and your friends than they are. And I know at least I was hanging out with the local liquor store people
on Friday nights on your way home from work instead of coming and hanging out with me.
And she's calling me like, "Hey, where are you at? Like, we're trying to have dinner here." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm leaving."
I just want to hang out with my main because I like him.
Yeah. So
well,
anyways.
I got really southern there. Hang out with my main.
Well, weigh all that out. It is a pitfall to be avoided. So think about why you're shopping, what you're trying to get, and the way that it's most advantageous to you. Don't let internet opinion about not paying marked up prices influence how you make the best decisions for yourself, your family, your bank account, all those things. Let's get into lie number 2.
Okay. Lie number 2 is allocated bottles are better.
So, are they better?
Sometimes.
And sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they're just harder to get.
And that's what makes them allocated is
right.
harder to get. Like they are harder to get because they are allocated.
Right. I mean, we show it on the channel all the time here. Things that are hard to get may or may not be better than things that are sitting on the shelves.
Yeah.
And this is literally why we do blind tastings. It's why we encourage everyone else to do blind tastings. It removes all the bias of the label and the, the allure and the mystique of the hard to get bottle. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like, it is a fact, I think, that hard to get bottles oftentimes do create more of an elevated experience, especially if you're sharing them with other people. And that is something that allocated hard to get bottles can do, that sometimes regular shelf bottles struggle to do.
Right.
But it doesn't mean the actual whiskey in the bottle's any better.
Is better whiskey.
Right.
Not all the time, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that we try to speak to a lot of times. We talk about fighting the FOMO, mm-hmm. And the FOMO is fear of missing out. And the reason we say that is because if you do blind tastings, what you'll find is that your palate probably tends to track towards a certain type of profile, mm-hmm. a certain type of whiskey, and things that aren't in that wheelhouse, even if they are hard to find or allocated, you're not necessarily going to like them.
Yeah.
You might not even like them at all, but just because they're hard to get doesn't mean they're going to be amazing for you.
Right.
So weigh all this out when you're trying to make your purchasing decisions. Fear of missing out, truthfully speaking, to me, what it means is you've not tried something before and you're kind of freaking out about getting your hands on it. Whereas if you've tried it before, maybe you've tried it at a restaurant, or maybe, you're part of our Patreon community and you've traded samples with somebody and you've got to try something that mm-hmm. you otherwise wouldn't be able to get a bottle of. And you try it and you love it. Well, now it's not fear of missing out anymore. You like it. And then back to the first point, maybe you just are willing to pay up for it, or maybe you want to go hunting for it, or maybe you want to try to build a relationship and try to get your hands on that specific bottle. But all this kind of plays in. These first 2 points go hand in hand, as I think the third lie will as well.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. Yeah. What's the third lie?
All right. The third lie is awards and glowing reviews mean that the whiskey is a must-buy bottle.
So what do you think about that? I
mean, I think that's a lie, obviously.
Yeah.
It goes to your point of what's your flavor profile. Just because we love a bottle, mm-hmm. if you listen to why we love it and that doesn't match up with why you like things, then that bottle's not going to be a must-buy for you. Yeah.
Taste is just far too subjective.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
All we can do is give our opinions on the way things taste to us, and we're very sensitive to the fact that a lot of times, a lot of reviews will just gush over a whiskey. They'll say, "This is an amazing whiskey. Mm-hmm. You got to get your hands on it." Well, that might be true if you like that type of whiskey, mm-hmm. but if you don't like that type of whiskey, then you probably won't like it, even if the review is gushing.
Yeah.
And case in point, I have a personal anecdote here, right?
Yeah.
The Bourbon Junkies, love Dan and Sean. Those guys put out a review on Knob Creek 18 year, and they gushed over it. They said it was, this is worthy of special release whiskey. Mm-hmm. And truth be told, it is. It's 18 years old. It is very good for what it is. They're not wrong about any of that stuff. The problem is that it is $200 in our market, $170, $180 to $200. I personally don't love Jim Beam products all that much, and I don't want to spend $200 on 100 proof whiskey, and that's exactly what it is. But
that's exactly what you did.
It is a 100 proof Jim Beam whiskey that's $200. And I just watched the Bourbon Junkies review. I got really excited about it, and I went out and bought a bottle without even thinking about the fact that none of those things that it is line up with what I like spending my money on.
Or what you like drinking.
Right. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean, that's no shade to Dan and Sean. Their review was spot on and they loved it.
Yeah.
And it's just that for me, I should have known better that this is not the type of thing that I want to spend $200 on.
Yeah.
And
so
if I
it's you, not them.
Oh, it's 100%.
You're the problem.
100% my fault.
But I think that, to your point, you got excited about it. So,
Yeah.
and in this hobby, it's very easy to get excited about things, especially if other people are excited about it. So, I think get excited, be excited, but also check yourself before you wreck yourself and weigh the excitement against what you know about your whiskey. And if you're new in your journey and you don't know much yet, that's fine. Try it, buy it, be willing to lose the money if you don't like it, but then just chalk that up to I'm learning more about what I do and don't like, and then it's a lesson learned.
Right. Rewards, glowing reviews, none of that stuff means anything unless you contextualize why those things got the awards, why those things got glowing reviews, and then weigh that against your own palate preferences.
Yep.
And if you can't do that, then truthfully speaking, you're literally just taking a gamble, you know?
Yeah.
You really are. And to Aaron's point, us over here, we really do try to speak to the why of why we like or don't like something. Because if you really like sweet bourbon and powerful bourbon and saturated flavors, well, you and me are simpatico palate-wise. If you really like ryes, kind of tempered sweetness, balanced profiles.
Or balanced sweet bourbon. I
Yeah.
like sweet bourbon if it's balanced with other things.
Yeah. Then you're probably more on Erin's wavelength.
Yeah.
So if she likes something and your profile fits her profile, then boom, you know you're probably going to like it. You can take at least an educated guess, having not tried it.
But you still might not. You still just have to try.
You still might not. Same for me. If you like what I like and I'm gushing over something, you may love it, you may not. You know, it literally is taste, and taste is entirely subjective. So, you know, there really is no such thing as a professional in the whiskey review space. All we're doing is giving our opinions, and all you can do is use that as a data point weighed against your own personal preferences.
I do think, let me back it up. You can be a professional in the whiskey tasting space. However, I don't think whiskey taste is objective. It's not an objective truth because everyone's taste is different.
Good point. You can be a professional in the whiskey space, meaning you make your living by tasting whiskey and reporting on it, but no one is the authority on whiskey because it is taste, and taste is completely subjective.
Yeah.
So please don't fall victim like I did with the Knob Creek 18. You know, I still regret that. To this day, it's the biggest bottle regret.
Lesson learned, though. You learned a really valuable lesson. So that was just
I'm sharing it with you guys.
Price that you had to pay to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Literally the price you had to pay.
It literally is. And you know, look, we say all this stuff because we know that getting allocated bottles is a lot of fun. We know you see a glowing review on something and you get really excited about it. And it's a hobby that lends itself to excitement, and it's a hobby that sometimes lends itself to downright frenzy, you know? But these 3 lies are things that I believed when I was, you know, transitioning from a casual social sipper like you into more of a bourbon nerdy type of guy. And it got me, you know, it got me time and time again. It got me. These are just a couple of examples.
Learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. We're hoping that you do. And honestly speaking, at the end of the day, bottles, they come and they go. All this allocated stuff is fine and well, and it's fun. If you like hunting, the hobby lends itself to that. You know, if you like building relationships with store owners, the hobby lends itself to that as well. But at the end of the day, our opinion is that bottles come and go, and the relationships are what's the most worth investing in. And we do that over on Patreon. We invest in this channel and our Patreon community, and our Patreon members invest right back into the community as well with us.
They do. We have a great Patreon community, the best Patreon community, some might say.
And it's full of a bunch of good people who like good whiskey, but they value the relationships and the friendships that they build more than the bottles. And caring is sharing. All that stuff is going down over on Patreon and on Discord. And you get to Discord through the Patreon. So you can check all that down in the video description below. It's also where we release our barrel picks, where we go to distilleries, select a barrel that fits our taste profile, and then we release it to you guys. So that goes down through all the tiers, and there's a free tier as well, and they will get access if it goes through all the paid tiers. So at least sign up for the free tier. That's down in the video description. And down there as well is a link to our merchandise. If you like our shirts like these or want to see other shirts like these, you can do that over at stuffandwhiskey.com. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Be good to each other, y'all. And until next time.
Cheers.